WVEC-TV, plan.
Time for Buttons Lane for two, and here we go.
This is Jim Conway, ABC News.
Newport News Shipbuilding is the world's only maker of nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. In 1998, anchor Terry Zahn and I celebrated one of the shipyard's finest products, the then brand-new aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman, with live coverage from Naval Station Norfolk for the ship's commissioning led by the keynote speaker, President Bill Clinton. This is the commissioning of USS Harry S. Truman.
Live from Norfolk Naval Base, 13 News and LNC present A Call to Duty, the commissioning of the USS Harry S. Truman.
The morning of July 25th, 1998. President Clinton, Defense Secretary William Cohen, Navy Secretary John Dalton, and nearly 20,000 people converge on Pier 12 at the Norfolk Naval Base to witness a piece of American history. Commissioning ceremonies for the newest aircraft carrier to join the Navy's Atlantic Fleet. I'm Terry Zahn.
And I'm Mike Gooding. The Harry S. Truman cost American taxpayers more than $4 billion. But from the people who built it to the Navy brass who now own it, they say it's all money well spent. When the Navy finally got their hands on it and the USS Harry S. Truman churned up the seas with her twin nuclear reactors for the first time, the mammoth warship passed her sea trials with flying colors. At 1,096 feet in length and an air wing of 85 Jetson planes, along with a complement of Sea Sparrow short-range surface-to-air missiles, the Phalanx close-in weapon system, and an advanced electronic warfare system, the Truman and her sister aircraft carriers in the Nimitz class make for imposing adversaries on the high seas. And with an expected lifespan of 50 years, Truman and the others give the American taxpayer a lot of bang for their buck. But all the accolades are no surprise to the 18,000 workers at Newport News Shipbuilding, where Truman and all the nation's other Nimitz carriers were built. They are, says the shipyard CEO, vital.
And the stock of the carrier, I think, has gone up significantly over the last year and a half or 2 years. A lot of people thought the carrier was declining at the end of the of the Cold War, and it was going to be a relic. And actually, what's happened, it's become a more valuable weapon system as a deterrent in diplomacy in the post-Cold War than it ever was in the Cold War.
It says a lot of things as far as their commitment to a peaceful world is concerned, because you got to remember that the oceans are open, and this is a platform that is mobile, and not only mobile, it can move at a fairly high speed from one location to another if the situation requires. It is not strictly a war machine, it's also a peace machine, because it's a huge demonstration of capability. We want peace, and I see the carrier as a peace machine and not a war machine, although it's got war-making capability to a huge extent, but its mission is truly one of peace.
Named for the nation's 33rd president, Harry S. Truman, the man who went from World War I field artilleryman to the commander-in-chief who ended World War II more than half a century ago, this Truman contains state-of-the-art modern-day technology that should serve the ship and her crew well into the 21st century.
We look a lot like other carriers, but inside we've made some significant improvements. So we, particularly in the area of handling information effectively, tactical and administratively, we can move information, we can handle it better, we can make better use of it. So
Truman's first commanding officer says his carrier, like others in her class, still have a place in this Navy, a place in this world.
Although the Nimitz class certainly has proven itself over the life of the design, that it's been very effective and efficient for our nation, I think.
LNC was also pierside, providing live coverage of the commissioning ceremonies.
And it's our privilege to bring you a brand new look at a centuries-old Navy tradition. Here now the commissioning ceremonies for CVN-75, the aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable William Jefferson Clinton, President of the United States of America and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, escorted by the first commanding officer of Harry S. Truman, Captain Thomas G. Otterbein, United States Navy. March on the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem will be presented by the Truman High School Concert Choir and the William Crispin Concert Choral, accompanied by the Cinquelant Fleet Band. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Roy Albeebe will offer the invocation. May we pray? Eternal and loving Father, we bow here as shipmates and citizens from every part of these United States. Our hometown skylines are dotted with spires and crosses, all resounding one theme: our faith looks up to Thee. As we celebrate this historic event, we're reminded that You bless the nation that honors You. For all who have labored to build this vessel, even at the risk of their lives, we are indebted and we are thankful to You. For all who will stand watch on these decks, we ask Your presence. For those who will navigate its seas, divine favor. Those who will fly from its decks, protection. Those who will direct missions of peace, and if called upon, conflict, give divine wisdom. And all the loved ones that remain ashore through the good, the tough, and the uncertain, give forbearance. We are privileged, Lord, to witness this ship come alive, but may we be always mindful of keeping alive the values of Harry S. Truman, one who through the struggle of war gave us decisive leadership, and through peacetime gave us a sterling example of self-discipline, honesty, and mutual respect. As we honor Your name, dear Lord, in captivating these moments, we do so in the name of the one who gives us true freedom. Amen. Will the guests please be seated? Harry S. Truman, parade, rest. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Charles Robb, Senator, Commonwealth of Virginia.
Mr. President, Secretary Cohen, Secretary Dalton, Governor Carnahan, Mrs. Horton, members of Congress who join all of us in mourning the loss of two of our capital's finest yesterday, Admiral Johnson, Admiral Reason, other distinguished guests, Captain Otterbein, officers and crew of the USS Harry S. Truman, family members and friends of the man from Missouri, and family and friends of the United States Navy. It is my privilege to welcome you to the Commonwealth of Virginia, proud home of the United States Atlantic Fleet and the greatest concentration of warfighting power and peacekeeping potential ever assembled. It was here in our Commonwealth in nearby Yorktown that freedom ultimately prevailed over 2 centuries ago, and the greatest democracy the world has ever known was born. And it was from these ports of Hampton Roads that American sailors and Marines have embarked for 2 centuries to fight our country's battles and protect our interests around the world, reminding us again and again that eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. Our warships departed these ports to join the fight against Hitler, and more recently, to bring American might to places like Bosnia and the Persian Gulf. And they continue to depart on deployments that challenge the sailors and Marines who serve on them and the families who yearn for their safe return. On a more personal note, it was from these piers 40 years ago that I embarked on my first transatlantic crossing on a destroyer, and 4 years later I was home ported here on a cruiser as executive officer of the Marine Detachment on the USS Northampton, then a highly classified National Emergency Command post afloat from which a president could fight a war if he had to, and during the Cuban Missile Crisis we came perilously close. In fact, Mr. President, another of your predecessors, John F. Kennedy, spent 2 days at sea with us, during which 81 ships of the Atlantic Fleet passed in review at Man the Rail. It was the only time, to my knowledge, that has ever been done, at least on that scale, and it was truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Today, we make history once again in an age-old commissioning ceremony that never fails to stir us, as our nation's 42nd Commander-in-Chief honors our nation's 33rd Commander-in-Chief and honors all of us by keeping a commitment the federal elections law precluded him from keeping 2 years ago when we christened this 90,000-ton island of diplomacy in the shipyard where she was built just across the harbor. We're proud to have built her, proud to have her call Norfolk home, and we're proud to welcome our Commander-in-Chief to the most important naval base in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable William S. Cohen, Secretary of Defense.
President Clinton and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Janet and I are deeply honored to be here with you today on such a special occasion, and you made it a very special one in our lives as well. Mr. President, I recall that at the State dinner you had for British Prime Minister Blair last February, you recounted how in 1901 a bright-eyed high school student came across a poem. He copied the verse, he neatly folded it, he put it in his wallet, and he carried it with him for the next half-century. One passage from that poem read, "Heard the heavens filled with shouting, and there rained a ghastly dew from the nation's airy navies grappling in the central blue." The poet was Tennyson, the student was Harry S. Truman of Independence, Missouri. Today, America sends this awesome ship, graced with Harry S. Truman's name, out to grapple in the central blue. Its brave crew is going to sail from America and for America as they ply the seas, defending our country and our interests, giving comfort to our friends and caution to our foes. The USS Harry S. Truman is going to give America a powerful platform for peace that's unmatched in human history. And while Harry Truman, the student, might have never imagined that such a ship would bear his name, Harry Truman, the senator, the president, and the statesman, would surely be filled with pride that it does. As Secretary of Defense, I too am filled with pride as I look upon the crew of this mighty vessel. These sailors are truly America's best. They come from every station in life, from every race and region of our country, backed up by families that share their sacrifice. A magnificent formation, unified in a selfless mission of dedication and service. I believe this crew and their families would also give Harry Truman great pride, because it was 50 years ago tomorrow that he set America on a course to realize the best in itself with his bold decision to end racial segregation in our armed forces.
This outstanding crew is powerful proof of that wisdom and of that courageous order and the great promise of the years to come. Today, at this pivot point in history, in this time of stunning new opportunities and startling new dangers, it serves us well to remember President Truman's admonition that peace must be built upon power as well as upon goodwill and good deeds. And key to that power is maintaining the readiness of our armed forces by ensuring that our men and women in uniform have the training, the supplies, the weaponry they need both today and into the future. The USS Harry S. Truman is a testament to our commitment to invest in the future. And I am proud in this past year we've turned the defense procurement budget around, and we are now pursuing a plan that will ensure that future generations of military men and women will be equipped with a future generation of weapons. But securing the future will not come at the expense of preserving peace in the present. The readiness of today's force is and must remain a top priority. We constantly monitor the state of our forces so we can make necessary adjustments quickly to ensure our readiness. Ongoing challenges abroad and a booming economy at home have produced additional burdens and challenges to which we have responded promptly. Some actions we can take on our own, and we've done so, but much of what is needed is going to require the support of Congress. And Mr. President, I'm going to be working closely with the Congress in the few weeks remaining before it adjourns for the year to ensure that our fighting forces get the resources they need to preserve the peace and defend freedom now and in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, half a century after Harry Truman, we are privileged to have a president who understands that peace must be built upon power as well as upon goodwill and good deeds. President Clinton has ensured that America's commitment to world peace rests on having the world's most powerful military forces. He knows that America's goodwill toward the world is best shown by having in uniform the best men and women that our country can produce. And he understands that our forces must be sustained and supported so they can carry out America's good deeds around the globe, from the forests of Bosnia to the waters of Persian Gulf to the rugged hills of Korea. President Clinton takes care of our forces so that our forces can take care of America, forces like the USS Harry S. Truman and the dedicated sailors who bring her to life today. Mr. President, America's military is proud to have you here today, and ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce our Commander-in-Chief, President Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Secretary Cohen, Mrs. Cohen, Secretary Riley, Secretary and Mrs. Dalton, Senator Robb, Governor Carnahan, Representative Skelton, Congressman Pickett and other members of Congress, Admiral Johnston and Admirals Bowman and Reason and Gaiman and the other distinguished leaders of the Navy who are here, Captain Otterbein, men and women of the Navy, veterans, Mr. Fricks, and others who had a role in building this magnificent vessel, my fellow Americans. Good morning, and what a beautiful morning it is. Let me begin this day by saying that we are all thinking of someone who should be here but cannot be, Margaret Truman Daniel. She has been a great friend to Hillary and our daughter and to me, a great American citizen, and Harry Truman was very proud of her, justifiably. I wish she could be here. I'd also like to thank especially a man who will speak after me, one who knew President Truman well, who stands in his tradition, and who did so much to make this day happen, Representative Ike Skelton of Missouri. In 1913, Harry Truman was a young Missouri farmer experiencing some business difficulties as he did from time to time. But as always, he didn't give up easily. He wrote to his sweetheart and future wife, Bess, these words: "My ship's going to come in yet." Now, we all know that Harry Truman was a man of his word. It took 85 years, but here on July the 25th, 1998, Harry Truman's ship has come in. Of course, President Truman's hometown of Independence, Missouri, is not exactly a center of naval operations. Coming from the state just south of Missouri, you know we're completely landlocked, and Harry Truman was an Army man. But in 1944, as a United States Senator, he spoke at the christening of the battleship Missouri, on whose decks Japan surrendered just a year later. He felt a lifelong affection for the ship known as the Mighty Mo, and as president, he came to rely, as all presidents do, on the world's greatest Navy. The American people still feel a strong affection for Harry Truman. He seemed to some an ordinary man, but he became an extraordinary president. He represented the best in us, and he gave us the best in himself. He never failed to live up to the words of his fellow Missourian, Mark Twain, which he kept on his desk at the Oval Office. "Always do right. This will gratify some people and astonish the rest." 50 years ago, when Harry Truman became our president, America faced a mountain of crises. Europe lay shattered. A Cold War bred danger around the world. Terrible new weapons made every false step a potential catastrophe. And angry voices were being raised here at home by Americans against other Americans. At such a time, and after the rigors of World War II, some wanted to turn away from the world, to relinquish the leadership that had rescued freedom from tyranny. But Harry Truman said no. He made courageous decisions, focused always on doing right, making sure everyone knew the buck stopped with him. He approved massive aid to Europe, including our former enemies, in one of the most far-sighted instances of enlightened self-interest in history. In 1948, he became the first world leader to recognize the new state of Israel over the bitter protests of his advisors. That same year, when Stalin closed off Western access to Berlin, he ordered the heroic airlift to relieve the beleaguered city. And 50 years ago tomorrow, as Secretary Cohen has noted, Harry Truman made one of the best decisions any commander-in-chief ever made. He was sickened by stories of African-American veterans fighting heroically for America in war, only to return to violence and hatred. He wrote, "As president, I know this is bad. I shall fight to end evils like this." And despite the extraordinary political pressures against him, despite growing up himself in a segregated community, on July the 26th, 1948, Harry Truman ordered the armed forces to integrate with Executive Order 9981. From that day forward, our men and women in uniform have truly been a force for freedom and a shining example to all humanity. President Truman's decisive acts made crystal clear that America would not stand by while the world unraveled, that our ideals were not just words on parchment, but guideposts for coming together as Americans. As Truman said in the first address by any American president to the NAACP, "When I say all Americans, I mean all Americans." When we scan the landscape of the new century ahead, the future Harry Truman defined is the promise we now enjoy. Think of what has happened growing out of the decisions he made 50 years ago. The Cold War is over. Europe is thriving. Berlin is united. Greece and Turkey are vital NATO allies working with us to promote peace in the Balkans. Israel, Japan, South Korea are among our strong democratic partners. International organizations like NATO, the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund are essential components of the architecture of peace and prosperity. These are not accidents of history. They reflect the vision of the leader we celebrate here today. Harry Truman knew that a president's ability to persuade others in the world is greatly enhanced when commanding the world's strongest military. That is still true. When we aimed to restore hope in Haiti 4 years ago, the Navy was there to make it happen. When violence tore apart Bosnia, naval operations in the Adriatic helped to create the conditions of peace. When we needed quick action in the Persian Gulf last winter, the Navy was there again to put steel behind our diplomacy. And on this day, our persuasiveness has been enhanced considerably. This carrier occupies 4.5 acres, stands 20 stories tall. It will be home to up to 6,000 personnel, about the population of Harry Truman's hometown. From aviators in their ready rooms to the engineers in their spaces, from catapult officers who can launch 4 aircraft in just 1 minute, to the cooks who prepare 18,000 meals a day, the men and women of the Harry S. Truman will do America proud. And let me say to the families of those crewmen here today, we appreciate your commitment too. Your loved ones on the Harry S. Truman will never be sent into harm's way without clear purpose and superior preparation. As Secretary Cohen has made clear, the readiness of our military will remain a top priority. Today and for the future, our forces will be fully capable of meeting our commitments around the world. We have done much to meet these readiness goals, but we must do more. As the members of Congress here keenly appreciate, Congress is the vital partner in this effort. This year, with bipartisan congressional support, we provide emergency funding for our military operations in Bosnia and Southwest Asia, and thus are able to meet critical readiness needs. But Congress, as yet, has not approved the funding we need on the same terms for the crucial operations in fiscal year 1999, which begins only 9 weeks from now. If we are to remain fully prepared, it is imperative that Congress act. A month ago, the Defense Department sent to Congress a request to transfer $1 billion from lower priority programs to important training, maintenance, and readiness requirements. To sustain our readiness, again, I ask Congress to approve this request before the summer recess. This ship, the Harry Truman, is a monument to strength of character, to the character of a president and the character of those who serve aboard her, to the character of the shipyard workers who built her in Newport News. The motto you have adopted says it all: the buck stops here. Over the next 50 years, America must continue to be responsible, to say the buck stops with the United States, to ask the questions that the President we honor here today asked. What do the decisions we make today mean for our children and grandchildren? Is what we are doing good for all our people? Will it deepen our freedom, expand opportunity, strengthen our union, advance the cause of freedom and peace and security in the world? Will it bring hope to the oppressed and fear to the oppressors? The very sight of the Harry S. Truman will summon our best ideals and recall the will and vision of a man who arrived when we needed him most. Some will look at this carrier and see only her massive physical dimensions. I hope most of us will see something even bigger: the living spirit of America and the indomitable courage of one of the greatest leaders our still young nation has yet produced. To the men and women who will serve on the Harry S. Truman, remember, the buck stops with the United States. Godspeed, And if he were here, he would say, give them hell. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable John H. Dalton, Secretary of the Navy, will place Harry S. Truman in commission.
Thank you, Mr. President, for those inspiring words, and thank you for being here today. Many presidents in this century have had a close association with the Navy, and President Clinton has as well. This president has been aboard more Navy ships than any president since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing speaks louder than your presence. Thank you, Mr. President. It is now my great honor and privilege to make Harry S. Truman a United States ship so she can become an active part of the fleet that so proudly serves this great nation. As authorized by the President of the United States, I hereby place United States ship Harry S. Truman in commission. May God bless and guide this warship and all who sail in her. Give 'em hell, Harry.
Thank you, Secretary Dalton. Executive Officer, hoist the colors and the commissioning pennant.
Aye, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I direct your attention to the mast as we hoist the colors and the commissioning pennant. Harry S. Truman, attend, who? Signalman Senior Chief Parks, hoist the colors and break the commissioning pennant.
Aye, aye, sir.
Harry S. Truman, parade, rest. Captain, the colors have been hoisted and the commissioning pennant is closed up at the main truck.
Very well. I shall now read my orders. From Chief of Naval Personnel to Captain Thomas G. Otterbein, United States Navy. Subject, Bureau of Personnel Orders number 3255 of 21 November 1995. Upon commissioning of United States ship Harry S. Truman, CVN 75, report for duty as commanding officer. Signed, Frank L. Bowman, Vice Admiral, United States Navy, Chief of Naval Personnel. Admiral Johnson, United States ship Harry S. Truman is in commission, and I assume command.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Ike Skelton, Congressman, 4th District, State of Missouri.
Mr. President, what a thrill for you to be here, sir. Secretary Cohen, Secretary Dalton, fellow colleagues from the United States Congress, distinguished guests, Truman sailors, fellow Missourians, ladies and gentlemen. This may well be the largest gathering of Missourians outside our state since the inauguration of Harry S. Truman as president on January the 20th, 1949 in Washington. As a teenager, I was fortunate to accompany my father to that momentous event on the east front of the United States Capitol. President Truman began his inaugural address by saying, "I accept with humility the honor which the American people have conferred upon me." Were he with us today, I'm convinced that President Truman would once again be humbled by the honor of having this great naval ship named for him. I'm able to speak from a personal point of view because of the friendship that was formed some 70 years ago on September the 17th, 1928 to be exact. The occasion was the dedication of the Pioneer Mother statue, the Madonna of the Trail, located in my hometown of Lexington, Missouri. Two speakers on the program met that day, the president of the National Old Trails Association and a representative of the Lexington American Legion Post. The former was County Court Judge Harry S. Truman from nearby Jackson County, and the other was the young prosecuting attorney from Lafayette County, Ike Skelton, my father. Because of the lasting friendship that was formed that day, my wife Susie and I in later years became to know the genuinely nice person we call the man from Independence. My task today is to speak of the man, Harry S. Truman, and I direct my remarks especially to the sailors of this ship who will be known as Truman sailors from this day forward. Truman once wrote, "Great men and women are essayed in future generations." So as this ship is commissioned in his name today, let us take measure of the man, Truman, and reflect on the traits of his character that allowed him to lead this great nation and be recognized as one of America's finest presidents. Harry Truman was bedrock American. He remains a role model for Americans of all ages and generations. Underlying Truman's political accomplishments was his strength of personal character. When faced with challenges, Truman put his shoulder to the task, used his Missouri good sense to call it as he saw it, and forged ahead with a serious business at hand. And unlike those who assign blame to others, he believed in personal responsibility as the sign on his desk and the motto of this ship declare, "The buck stops here." Harry Truman was a man of great devotion to his wife and lifelong sweetheart Bess, and to his daughter Margaret. The hundreds of letters exchanged by President and Mrs. Truman during their courtship throughout their married life give testimony to their close relationship. And who can forget the letter written by a loving father who, coming to the defense of his daughter's vocal talents, threatened to blacken the eyes and break the nose of the music critic that published an unflattering review. Harry Truman had high regard for the armed forces of our country, having served in combat during the First World War as an artillery battery commander and later rising to the rank of colonel in the Army Reserve. He loved America and the American people, ever keeping the public interest uppermost in his decisions. He was an avid reader and student of history. My friend, the late Congressman Fred Schwingle, told me about meeting Senator Truman in 1935 while Schwingle was a college student in Missouri. Truman advised him that to be a good American, you should know your history. That story is consistent with my experience. I will remember taking a group of grade school students to visit the Truman Library in 1963. And though President Truman was of advanced age, he spoke to them in the library auditorium about American history and the Constitution. He wanted young people to learn as much as they could about America. like the presidents who came before and after him, Truman was burdened with the loneliness that goes along with being the chief executive. But President Truman did not shy away from difficult, often politically unpopular decisions. He once said, "Do your duty, and history will do you justice." Today, we applaud Truman's controversial decision to integrate the armed forces. In the face of opposition from military leaders and much of the American public, Truman had the courage to reject their arguments and do what he thought was right. The state of the world prompted Truman to move away from America's established pattern of peacetime oscillationism in order to assist European economic recovery through the Marshall Plan and to protect Western Europe under the umbrella of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Truman also had the courage to stand up to the communist aggression that marked the beginning of the Cold War. The Truman Doctrine made clear that the United States would not stand idly by in the face of communist aggression in Greece, Turkey, and elsewhere. Truman's commitment to the democratic rights of free people was clear as the U.S. provided essential supplies to the people of Berlin during the Soviet blockade, and when Truman made the agonizing decision to use American troops to lead the United Nations resistance to the communist invasion of South Korea. These actions earned the praise of British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who said to Truman, "You, more than any other man, have saved Western civilization." Truman learned about hard work and the value of a job well done while growing up as a Missouri farm boy. His mother claimed that he plowed the straightest furrow of anyone in the community. His handshake was firm, reflecting his farming background. His posture ever remained that of a soldier, and his early morning, fast-paced walks in Washington and later in Independence were legendary. His honesty and personal integrity were not questioned. Though not a great orator, his speeches and conversations were direct and to the point. He was a kind and compassionate man. At a campaign whistle stop in 1952, I saw him purposefully step down from the train to greet a severely disabled man who had struggled to the front of the crowd to catch a glimpse of President Truman. His loyalty to his friends was enduring. While vice president, he attended the funeral of Tom Pendergast, the disgraced Kansas City machine politician who had supported Truman early in his career. Truman, refusing to allow outside critics to weaken the bonds of his personal ties, attended the funeral and showed that he was a loyal friend to the end. He was positive in nature and optimistic about the future. Truman never forgot his Missouri roots and reflected poet Rudyard Kipling's description of the man who could walk with kings without losing the common touch. He was a man of determination. Prior to the 1948 presidential election, pundits and pollsters had written off Harry Truman. Just before the election, I asked my father if President Truman had a chance to win. My dad replied, "Ike, don't count Harry Truman out." Truman didn't let others convince him that his race for a term in his own right would fail. Instead, he took his message directly to the American people during his trademark whistle-stop campaign tour. Then as now, America loved a man with guts, and Truman's persistence was rewarded with a tremendous victory on Election Day. Election night reports indicated a solid vote for Truman. The well-known radio commentator H.V. Kaltenborn repeatedly predicted in his then familiar shrill voice that Harry Truman would be defeated by Thomas Dewey. Fortunately, Truman had a keen sense of humor. His wry wit was on display during 1949's inaugural events. While in Washington for the inauguration, I attended the electoral dinner, although at the time my attention was a bit distracted by the beauty of Hollywood actress Joan Blondell, who was sitting at a table a few feet away from me. I will never forget President Truman's mocking impersonation of H.V. Kaltenborn, which brought down the house with laughter. My mere words today cannot do justice to President Harry S. Truman. But you sailors, you Truman sailors who will serve aboard this ship named for him, can do justice to his memory. You can do your duty as if Harry Truman were looking over your shoulder. You can reflect all that was good and decent about him. Take responsibility for your actions. Be honest and direct in your dealings with others, humble in your demeanor, straight in your posture and brisk in your walk, thoughtful and considerate of others, loyal to your friends, devoted to your family, determined in your endeavors. Know the history of our country. Appreciate humor. Proud of the uniform you wear, and love America. From the earliest times, all sailors at sea have felt a sense of loneliness. On such occasions, I urge you to reflect on the loneliness of Harry Truman when he made momentous decisions while doing his duty for our country. During your lonely times, may the spirit of Harry Truman be an inspiration to you. Keep in mind one more thought. President Truman liked to tell the story about the grave marker in Tombstone, Arizona that read, "Here lies Jack Williams. He done his damnedest." Missouri's president strived to do just that, to do his damnedest, that is, to do his best. So I charge you, Truman sailors, to heed the wisdom of that epitaph by doing your damnedest. By doing so, your dedication will ensure that American freedom continues to shine like a pole star in the heavens. It's now my pleasure to introduce the man who put his shoulder to the wheel by appointing and leading the commissioning committee, Missourians all, to the highly successful conclusion that we are witnessing on this occasion. I'm proud to call him my friend. He is Trumanesque in his character and is truly a dedicated public servant, the governor of the state of Missouri, the Honorable Mel Carnahan. At the conclusion of his remarks, he will pass the traditional long glass. God bless.
We are privileged today to have the Honorable Mel Carnahan, Governor of the State of Missouri, to assist today in passing the long glass, which is the traditional symbol of the authority granted by the commanding officer to the officer of the deck in matters concerning the ship's operations and safety of the crew. Lieutenant Commander Mark Brownell, the first Truman State University Junior Officer of the Year, will receive the long glass and assume the duties and responsibilities of the first Harry S. Truman, Officer of the Deck.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary of Defense, Mr. Secretary of the Navy, Captain Otterbein, crew members of USS Harry S. Truman, and distinguished guests. 50 years ago tomorrow, President Harry Truman issued an executive order that all members of our armed forces be treated with equal honor and respect. It is fitting that our armed forces would return that honor and respect to the man from Independence today. With this ship, we send the spirit of Missouri's favorite son to sea. We do so because the Truman spirit embodies all the best that lies within us as Americans, both our ordinary humanity and our extraordinary potential for greatness. With this noble vessel goes our love of family, friends, and country. With this proud ship carries our country's cargo of courage, the courage to speak up for truth and decency, and to defend our cherished democracy against all foes. She conveys President Truman's commitment to service and duty that can withstand any challenge and overcome any barrier. She bears our belief in the American dream and the supreme sacrifices we are willing to make to perpetuate it. For this is the Truman spirit, the spirit of a man who rose to lead us and lives on to inspire us through the power of his character and convictions. And so, as I pass this long glass in preparation for the first watch, I pass our hopes that United States ship Harry S. Truman is kept from harm's way. For all here, may I say, Godspeed this good captain, his excellent crew, and USS Harry S. Truman. May these valiant men and women take the treasures of freedom, peace, opportunity for all to the far corners of the earth in the name of that extraordinary man from Independence, Harry S. Truman. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. First watch.
Thank you, Governor Carnahan. Executive officer, set the first watch.
Aye, aye, sir. Officer of the deck, set the watch.
Aye, aye, sir. Sir, the watch is set.
Very well. Harry S. Truman, attend. Whew. Captain, the watch is set.
Very well. As most of you know, our sponsor could not be with us today, but we're honored with the presence of her husband, Mr. Clifton Daniel. Thank you for being here, sir. Mrs. Horton, as our matron of honor, would you join me at the podium? Drusy, as the personal representative of our sponsor and your lifelong friend, Mrs. Margaret Truman Daniel, would you please give the order to bring our ship to life?
Officers and crew of the Harry S. Truman, man this ship and bring her to life.
If tomorrow the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I'd thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time to stand and say, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, the crew of USS Harry S. Truman salutes you. We are proud to serve in your great Navy. Captain, the ship is manned and ready.
Very well. Admiral Mazak, USS Harry S. Truman is manned and ready, and I report for duty with the Atlantic Fleet. Mr. President, request permission to break your personal flag. Executive Officer, break the flag of the Commander-in-Chief.
Aye, sir. Signalman, Senior Chief Parks, break the flag of the Commander-in-Chief. Captain, the flag has been broken.
Very well. Place the crew at parade rest.
Harry S. Truman, parade rest. This supercarrier that you see before you is the result of a tremendous team effort between the Navy and the shipbuilder. With us today, representing the builder, is Mr. William P. Fricks, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Newport News Shipbuilding. The guests may be seated.
Mr. President, distinguished guests, and everyone that's taking part in this celebration today, I am indeed fortunate to represent the 18,000 shipbuilders of Newport News, many of whom are here today. These are the men and the women who over the last 7 years have crafted the Truman, the most advanced ship in the Navy's fleet. I can tell you, and I know you can see, all of us are quite proud of Truman. Today, she takes her rightful place alongside other great Newport News-built ships, like the Washington, the Roosevelt, the Eisenhower. And as the birthplace for our country's carriers, we hold a very special place in our hearts for each of these mighty ships. And during construction, a bond is often forged between the sailor and the shipbuilder. And I can tell you the Truman was no exception. Captain Otterbein, it was a real pleasure working with you and your talented crew. And we shall keep a watchful eye as Truman sails the world, serving as an instrument of diplomacy and of peace. On behalf of all of us at Newport News Shipbuilding, from the engineers to the pipe fitters, to the welders, to the machinists, we wish you, Captain Otterbein, and your fine crew, Godspeed. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Thomas G. Otterbein, United States Navy, First Commanding Officer, United States Ship Harry S. Truman.
This is great stuff, isn't it? Mr. President, Secretary Cohen, Secretary Dalton, members of Congress, Governor Carnahan, flag officers, distinguished guests, fellow commanding officers, Truman families and friends, and fellow crew members. I am very honored and humbled to be standing here today. It is a long road from Bad Axe, Michigan, half of whose population is here today, to this platform. But I've had a lot of help along the way, and I want to thank my wife, my family, and my friends for all their support through the years. I must also thank the people who have worked so hard to make today's ceremony special. Admiral Zemer's personnel in Naval Base Norfolk, especially Mr. Jim Milligan, for the site preparation, the bagpipers, the Sinkland Fleet Band, the choirs from Independence, and especially retired Navy Captain Don Schramm for his stirring rendition of God Bless the USA. For the beautiful flyby, we owe a great debt to Fighter and Strike Fighter Wings Atlantic, as well as the vintage Warbirds. My very personal thanks go to the wonderful folks of Missouri who have opened their hearts to the crew. Led by Governor Mel Carnahan and Congressman Ike Skelton, they have helped us forge strong ties with the state of Missouri, ties that I hope will endure throughout the life of the ship. The commissioning committee, which Governor Carnahan appointed, has performed magnificently. The chairman, Mr. Pete Nicolaisen, worked tirelessly, and his committee has helped us outfit this ship beautifully. Together with the Hampton Roads Committee, they guaranteed today's success. And finally, I must comment on the outstanding team of Naval Sea Systems Command, the supervisor of shipbuilding, Newport News Shipbuilding, and my crew of sailors whose cooperation and spirit of teamwork are responsible for the great warship you see before you today. 27 months ago, I joined a small cadre of about 200 ship's company personnel to begin the task which culminates in today's commissioning ceremony. Today, that crew has grown to almost 2,500. I will not regale you with the problems encountered or the hard work required to surmount those difficulties, because I've always believed in the wisdom of an old adage of the sea service. No one cares the storms you encountered. Did you bring in the ship? Well, this crew of young men and women springing from every state of this union has brought in the ship and accomplished amazing things. Completing 2 exhaustive sea trial periods, this ship was delivered on time with fewer discrepancies than any previous carrier. Every inspection agency has specifically commented on the technical competence, dedication to duty, and high morale of this exceptional crew. Every spouse, every parent, every grandparent, every sibling, every child of a Truman sailor should be bursting with pride in this historic day. This ship is truly in good hands, hands that average less than 21 years of age, hands that are as capable, as skilled, as caring, and as patriotic as any generations that have gone before. People who worry about the abilities, dedication, and moral health of American youth need to come to sea on Harry S. Truman and watch this crew work. The qualities of hard work, honesty, integrity, and moral courage which make Harry S. Truman the man, an enduring figure in our nation's history, also permeate this crew. I am proud and honored to be their captain. One of the great benefits of being the commanding officer of a commissioned ship is that I am now authorized to promote sailors for particularly meritorious performance. Therefore, I'd like to announce the promotion of these Truman sailors: Stephen G. Gamache to Hull Technician First Class, Jeanette B. Bryant to Mess Specialist Second Class, Francis M. Nielsen to Corpsman Second Class, James L. O'Neill to Interior Communications Technician Second Class, Tanya L. Cabes, Ship Serviceman Third Class, Shelley L. Knight, Ship Serviceman Third Class, Edwin G. Butler, Dental Technician Third Class, Angela M. Swanson, Engineman Third Class, and Douglas W. Taylor, Aviation Administrationman Third Class. I wish I could promote every deserving Truman sailor. There are literally hundreds. Congratulations to each selectee. In 1948, Harry S. Truman was a man of choice to give him hell. 50 years later, Harry S. Truman is a ship of choice to do the same. An effective instrument for peace, a potent force for war. Mr. President, USS Harry S. Truman is online and ready to serve. God bless America and God bless this great ship. Harry S. Truman. Will the guests please rise for the benediction and remain standing for the retiring of the colors? Chaplain Holloway will lead us in the benediction.
Eternal Father, as we conclude this commissioning ceremony, may your grace go with us in harmony. The USS Harry S. Truman is now in service to our nation. This ship has come to life, and the crew is on station. Lord, we honor a great man, the man from Independence, with the name of this great ship. May those who serve her be a credit, and in duty may we not slip. And with your Spirit, bless us all so that this ship and crew will always be mindful to do right, to love goodness, and to walk humbly with our God. In your name, Creator of all, we say, Amen.
Retire the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated until the platform guests depart. Harry S. Truman, parade, rest. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our ceremony. After the presidential party has departed, you'll be invited to come aboard the ship and participate with us in a reception that will be held.
Bill Clinton now departing from the from the elevator number 2, and the Harry S. Truman becomes the USS Harry S. Truman, a commissioned ship of the line in the United States Navy. Most speakers today noting that it was 50 years ago this week that Harry S. Truman signed the order that integrated the military for the first time, having blacks and whites serving together. It took a couple of years, but eventually that did come about. Thanks for joining us. On behalf of Mike Gooding and the rest of the LNC crew, about 30 of us this morning, goodbye.
May God bless and guide this warship and all who sail in her. Give 'em hell, Harry.